It's December 7, 2024. I'm Gloria Nussbaum, and I'm talking with Bill Mast of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, about his involvement with Mennonite Disaster Service. Bill, I'm delighted to have you with me, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of your stories. We're going to start at the very beginning. When and how did you first learn about Mennonite Disaster Service?
I'm not sure. I know that we did disaster service in our community before there was an MDS. And so it's been almost part of my life growing up to respond to disasters. So I'm not sure when MDS actually became involved in it, but in our state, we did respond to tornadoes.
Can you give me an example of what you were doing? Like you said, tornadoes.
When I was 9 years old, there was a massive tornado in Woodward, Oklahoma. And I think the next day, my mother's uncle had a cattle truck and he put canvas around the stock racks and put hay bales in there. And probably 20 men got into the back of that truck and went to Woodward. And my dad took me and my older brother along to see the devastation and respond in just a small way. Made an impression on my life that helped me respond the next time.
And is it safe to say that part of the reason that there was such an immediate response, it had something to do with your Mennonite church?
It was a Mennonite and Amish community together. And I do not know how they got the word around because this was the days before Amish had any telephones, and I don't know how, but they got the word out and they went around to the homes and picked the men up, and away we went.
So what do you specifically remember about seeing the devastation that very first time?
Well, the trees were just bare limbs with mattresses and all kinds of stuff wrapped around the trees. And then, of course, just the utter destruction of the homes.
Do you recall when it was actually Mennonite Disaster Service and how you got involved at that point?
I didn't really get involved as Mennonite Disaster Service till probably in the 1980s. They responded in Oklahoma, sending a busload of men to tornado site. But then actually in 1990, I became more active involved. We had just returned from a voluntary service assignment with the mission board, and I wanted to continue to do something. So in 1990, I started probably every year responding for a week at a time somewhere. Then in 99, we had the massive tornado in Oklahoma, and I was on a state chair on our board. And so I was involved in getting a unit started, and we built 10 new homes in Oklahoma that year with a binational organization.
What kind of work were you doing professionally in your life that allowed you? Yeah, tell me.
I'm a vocational carpenter and actually a lot more hands-on than home building. We actually did a lot of our own work. My brother and I were in partnership. I also spent 5 years as a vocational carpentry teacher in a high school working with young people. And then I spent 3 years in Brownsville, Texas in the home repair program with retired people. Had about 12 men that come in the wintertime for 3 or 4 months. So I had experience in leading youth groups and I had experience in retired people.
You had the whole gamut from young to older. You said that at a certain point you were the state chair. Talk a bit about that leadership role that you had at that point.
Well, I distinctly remember after the tornado in 99 that we had people from our regional and binational office come to Oklahoma to investigate. And we would go around to the different areas and went to meetings, and they stayed at our house. We come home about 8, 9 o'clock, and Betty had the dinner on the table and said, "You got about 10 phone calls to return." So I wanted to do that before it got too late. She said, "Well, come on, the dinner's getting cold. Let's eat." And I was really torn between doing what I was supposed to do and also considering her needs and providing for us.
Give me some stories of some of the places you've been, things you've seen, volunteers, the clients you've worked with. Just share some stories that come to mind.
One of them was I went to Minnesota after the flood there in Roseau, and they sent me to a home that the basement had flooded, and it was ready for restoration. And this couple, the man had severe dementia and was put in a adult daycare center for the day, but he's still in good health. And one evening, they came home just as I was cleaning up, and his wife told him to go up the garage and get the dustpan. He came back down to the basement with a can of fishing worms. And she said, no, the dustpan, and told him where it was. He went back up and came with the dustpan, helped me clean up. And then he said, well, we'll see you tomorrow if the Lord lives and we're willing. And I said, well, that's backwards. He said, no, that's right. The Lord's going to live. The question is, are we willing? And so I thought, even though he twisted it, it was still the right way to say it.
Tell me about some of the other places you've been, things that you've seen.
I've been to a number of places, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama. My wife and I spent 7 weeks in Alabama. She was assistant cook, and I was recruited. And I know one day we was working at a home in a really rough neighborhood, and we were repairing some rafters and had a hole in the roof to have a man get down in there to do some bracing up. And he got down and stuck his head out the hole, and by that time there was gunshots firing in the neighborhood. He just ducked down the hole again, but everything was okay. So we got out and we got the roof covered up. The story that I was thinking about was when I was leading the youth groups, volunteers, I had 2 Germans, 1 Canadian, and 2 American young people. And we were building a house as a training project. And the mother of the man we were building for came and said, could my grandson work with you? You may not know it, but you are sowing seeds. So I said, sure, he can come. So he would come and work with the young people. And at the house dedication, he was there. And he asked, where could I get a shirt like you have with MDS logo on it? And we did have some people from binational office there attending the ceremony. And I asked them, and they said, no, ours are all spoken for. And so he was kind of discouraged. Cole Unger, our young man from Canada, heard that. He pulled off his denim jacket, stripped his T-shirt off, and gave it to him and put his coat back on. And later, he came with the homeowner to another house he was building to help do some repairs. He was wearing that T-shirt.
It made a great impression upon him.
Yeah, the seed was sown.
You mentioned a couple of different places. That's one of the things about Mennonite Disaster Service. Is it safe to say that you've gotten to some places that you might not have gotten to otherwise?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was in Minnesota. And in fact, I have a nephew living in Roseau, works for Polaris Vehicle ATMs, whatever they are. And so I had connection there. Been to California after the fires, and all the people you meet from all over the country, a lot of Canadians, and I just enjoy working with people.
In terms of disasters, you've obviously seen many different kinds. How would you, maybe if there were a scale, what's sort of the most devastating? Give me some ideas about how you respond to the various kinds of natural disasters.
Well, I don't know. I'd rather build a new house from the start than try to repair one. So floods are probably the worst ones. The house is still all there and it looks okay. You don't see it driving by the road, but if you get in the house and all the mold on the walls and the mud and so on, that's the worst. But tornadoes and fires, they destroy, and then you know where to go next. But floods, you don't know.
Talk about some of the other volunteers that you've worked with.
Well, I remember we were in Newton, Texas, and a group from Kansas was going to come, and they sent a list of their volunteers, and one of them was a lady that had special needs, dietary needs. And she listed, I can't do this, I can't have that, can't. And I thought, well, why in the world would she even come? But she did, and she had adjusted her own needs so that you did not notice it. The cooks didn't have to be special. And she was one of the best painters that I had. And I said, why in the world would I want to deny somebody the opportunity to serve just because they have one issue in their life? And so it helped me to recognize that we don't have to arrive at a judgment so quick.
I'm assuming you've been like project coordinators, and I'm not sure of all the terms, but talk a bit about some of those various roles and maybe how things have changed over the years. I mean, you've been here since early days. Talk about how some things have changed.
Well, I took the project director's training in Louisiana in 1990, I believe, but at that time I was still working. It just never seemed to fit my schedule to go to a project as a director. But now over the years, with the advancement of computer age and so on, that has left me behind. My role is a crew leader. I can lead a crew. Of course, in the state of Oklahoma, where we don't actually have a unit set up, I have led the project as far as building it, but we didn't have the responsibility of coordinating all the volunteers who come long term and so on. The other was the youth team in Eureka, Kansas, and we had to do our own cooking. We stayed at a camp without any camp supervision, so we had to make our own menus, do our own grocery shopping, and then schedule the cooking. And I had to schedule all that, in addition to going to the job and coordinating that. So I said, the next time, I said, I'm not going to do that. We need to find somebody to do the cooking for us and take care of us. And that was in Oklahoma, and we had one of the long-term recovery people say, we'll take care of it. What she did then is she would get up every morning, drive 14 miles, and be at our camp by 6 o'clock to cook breakfast for us. And I said, you can't find any other help? She said, well, I really haven't tried. She just loved the kids so much. She just made that trip. And then she would schedule the evening, find somebody to cook in the evening. And they set up an account at the local grocery store. We could go in there and buy stuff, just say, put it on this account. I don't know where the money came from, but it was taken care of. So that was all done by the local community and not through our MDS project.
That reminds me, there are so many pieces to making things work, quote unquote, that we don't even think about. First, somebody finds the volunteers and schedules them, and then there's food that needs to happen, and lodging, and coordinating the actual work, and making sure that everyone who comes can feel needed. Talk a bit about sort of that whole milieu that we don't even think about.
Well, like I say, when I had these volunteers, I told them now things will be different when you get into a unit that has a project director and cooks and all that. You won't have that responsibility of getting up in the morning and cooking your own meals. What we had to do was you had to make out our menus a week before, and then you had to pick a partner to share the responsibilities and then make out your menu. And then we took all these menus and compiled a grocery list. And then on Friday, we would quit at noon, and some would go do laundry while others went shopping, and then we reversed and so on. Also, this lady that came and cooked our breakfast for us, she also did our laundry. Every Friday, we would take all our laundry to her place, and her mother-in-law did all our laundry for us. So that was the local community responding, and it was such a good relationship there.
Do you know about how long that project lasted?
Well, with the youth group, it's usually 2 months. And in most places, we have the foundation in and ready to start raising walls. And in that 2 months, we can usually complete it. Now, we had the last one, we were committed to build a new house, and then the funding was slow in coming. And by the time the 8 week was up, we had the foundation in, but nothing else. But the local community again helped us, and we did about 10 renovation projects, and of those, two of them were major enough that we actually had a house blessing for just a renovation. And then we had to finish the new build after the young people left. But we were there in that community for 14 months and did about 10 major renovations and one new build.
Where do you actually stay? Do you have like an RV or something? Or talk about.
I do have a small RV that I stay and in several places that I actually pull up on the job site and live right on site. But I took it to Avant, and I lived in that, and we renovated a house that had flooded, and we rebuilt it, and that was where our volunteers and our cooks stayed. So when they all left, then my wife came and joined me, and she was the cook, and we actually moved into the house because the team was gone. And that place up in Avant, we had the house there. I actually took my lawnmower up there, and I mowed the lawn, and we had flower beds, and we planted flowers, put up bird feeders, and we just lived there in the community.
It sounds like you and your wife do or did go many places together. What was that like?
A number of times, not as often as I would have liked, but we were in California together. We actually went to visit family and then decided to spend a week in Julian, California before we came home. She went with me to Tennessee, was in Bayou de Batra, Alabama. Also, we went with a Oklahoma youth group for 4 years, and she would always go along with that and was the cook for the group, or assistant. I mean, they usually had several people do the cooking. So, yeah, we've spent a lot of time together. One impression I had was Jerry Clausen was in Jackson, Tennessee, and a group, I think there was 8 of us, that went there and got there late one evening after dark, and they were staying at a former hospital. And Jerry came out to the car and met us all, and we introduced ourselves by name there in the light of the floodlights. He took us upstairs and introduced every one of us by name to the staff. And so a couple of days later, 4 of us were working on a job site sheetrocking the house. And I looked out the window and said, "Here comes Jerry. Let's all be somebody different." So we assumed different names. And when he come in, we started, "Well, John, would you come and do this, help me with this?" And "Oh, Henry, I'm busy." And we just threw names around. He looked up from one to the other and said, "You're messing with my mind."
That's another important part of work, isn't it? Having fun.
Yes.
Talk about some of the people that you were doing the work for, the people who had experienced disasters. Share a story or two about your relationship, maybe with some of those folks.
I know one time a lady had lost the back part of her house. A big tree fell on the addition where her laundry room was. And so we were there to talk about it. And she said, well, she can't live here. And she moved in with her daughter. And she lost her job. And then she got evicted, and her husband had cancer. She just had a long list. And I said, you have things that I can't address personally, but I can pray for you. And so she said, let me go get my husband. He was out in the car. So she brought him in, and we prayed together. So that was meaningful. And the last house we built, the lady came out just after we had sheetrocked the house, and she came in and looked, and she began crying. She said, I was 24 hours from walking away from this house and abandoning it when she got a call, how about a new house? And said, I just couldn't believe it. And she just cried. But she was so grateful. And when you see the response from people like that, it really makes it worth it all.
So are you still volunteering?
We had a tornado here in Oklahoma, about 8 miles east of us, about 6 weeks ago. The church we're going to actually organized, went and cleaned up 2 sites one day. I also found out that my daughter's father-in-law lost a lot of trees. So I spent Friday and Saturday after Thanksgiving chainsawing, went back again Wednesday and chainsawed. And yesterday, a friend and I went to another place where a big maple tree had went down, and we actually saved the trunk and loaded it up, going to cut it into lumber. I try to save a piece of wood from a tree from every site that we go to, and I turn those into projects that I take to our MCC relief sale. And I have made tables and different things from wood. One year I had over $3,000 worth of wood project that came from storm damage. I don't buy any lumber. I get all my trees and get them cut. So I use that then, and I don't sell anything. I give it to friends for gifts and try to have enough to donate to MC sale. And I actually made Lazy Susan, had about 6 different varieties of wood in it that I have reclaimed. To release sale, and it sold for $1,700. So somebody had some money they wanted to donate.
It sounds absolutely beautiful with all those different kinds of wood. I'm a carpenter's daughter, so when you start talking wood, it makes me really happy. You are obviously an artist, at least with wood, maybe some other ways as well. So things don't end when you leave the site. You take some things with you and make something beautiful out of them.
A few times I save a piece of wood from their site and make a bowl or something and give it to them as a gift. And I tell them this is kind of like our life. The tree is gone, but within that there is a soul that lives on. And this is a reminder of what you had before as it was a tree, but it's from the heart of the tree and still lives on.
That is so beautiful. So you've obviously given much time and effort and love and care to MDS. What have you received?
Well, it's been my passion, I guess, and my Bible verse is each one should use whatever gift he's received to serve others, faithfully administering God's grace in its various forms. And so I feel my gift has been construction and interacting with people. And putting those two together, MDS is just the perfect place to do that.
If you would happen to run into someone who doesn't know about MDS but might have some interest, how would you say to someone, if you want to volunteer with an organization, here's a good one and here are some of the reasons why?
I think we should have something that is greater than ourselves. And when we do that, focus on others instead of ourselves, we actually feel better. In fact, I told my barber that I think that people who have a positive outlook in life and are willing to be like an extrovert actually have better health as well. I think our health and our attitudes go together. And so I try to do that. And like I say, it's a way to find fulfillment and purpose in life.
As we're finishing up here, any final thoughts or one more story of maybe volunteers? The other thing that I've heard over and over is that MDS is very much about relationships. And I think what you've shared already would go right along with that.
When I think of it, and I've shared this, that we think of MDS as focusing on the survivors' needs, but I said MDS has a tremendous service to the volunteers. I have seen volunteers come and maybe have a little bit of a negative attitude at the beginning of the week, but you see their lives transform. And I said MDS is a tremendous ministry to our volunteers. The other thing that I've said is we have within MDS, we have all the different Anabaptist groups. And I said we have people who would not go to the same communion table in our Anabaptist family. But I said they'll get on the same roof. And we all work together. And I said I would venture to say if we did enough roofs together, we might learn to do communion together.
I love that. And it's so true. What is it about this? just getting up there and working together that makes us get along? Is it maybe that when we have a common goal?
Yeah, I think we do. We have so many shared things in our theology and history that we are still one people. And like I say, we have learned to overcome that by coming together. And I think MDS has done a very good job of being a bridge for all our Anabaptist family. And so that has been just tremendous to me.
Well, Bill, on behalf of MDS, thank you for your many, many years of amazing service. And it sounds like you're still out there working, making a difference.
I can go about 4 hours a day. That's about the limit for me to be active, but I do want to keep going as long as I'm able, but it's such a blessing to my life.
And thank you so much for taking the time to share some of your experiences and your wonderful stories with all of us. I greatly appreciate that.